Do you know that children are agents of transformation, and when their rights are protected, they stand a much better chance of growing up in a society that allows them to thrive? Good morning and welcome to today's episode of Women Empowerment Program, being organized and sponsored by the Rule of Law and Empowerment Initiative, also known as Partners West Africa Nigeria P1. My name is Nkem Okereke, your host for the show, with my co-host Ijoma Igwe. Today we'll be discussing the topic protecting the rights of minors. A minor, according to the Child Rights Act, is a person under the age of 18. And this topic is important because children and young people have the same general human rights as adults and also specific rights that recognize their special needs as children. It is therefore important that the rights of the child are realized for children to develop their full potential. We'll go on a short break now and then come back with our guests for this topic. Please stay tuned.
Good morning and welcome back to the show. Our guest for the topic we'll be discussing today is Mrs. Chinelo Obuzo, a legal practitioner with 9 years of litigation and general practice. She's currently working with J.P. Daudu & Co., a law firm with a special interest in criminal law and criminal justice. Please welcome with us our guest, Mrs. Chinelo Obuzo. Good morning, Ms. Chinelo.
Good morning, Ijoma.
Good morning, Ms. Chinelo.
And good morning, Ken. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
You're welcome. So our first question, we want to ask you, what are the rights of minors?
Well, simply put, minors have the same rights that we have as adults. Every basic human right out there is available to minors, and they have other special rights. If you look at the provisions of Section 203 to 218 of the Child Rights Act, which was adopted in Nigeria in the year 2003, you will find that the law reiterates that in addition to the basic human rights that you will find in Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, the minors, which are people or persons under the age of 18 years, have other special rights. Rights to survival, rights to development, rights to education, and other rights that you will find under the Act. Every right that you can think of that a child deserves, rights to respect, right to dignity, and rights not to be bullied, rights not to be intimidated, rights to religion, and every other right, social, economic, and I would say survival rights. Yes.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so in what ways do you think the rights of minors are being deprived?
In a lot of ways.
Okay.
I think the major issue is a cultural issue.
Okay.
We have a culture of imposition, and it's not, I'm not saying this that is in a bad way, but this is how we have been raised as a people. We try to impose on children what we think is good for them instead of guiding them. So you realize that if you go to the Act says, like under the right of religion, the Act specifies that the parents should be a guide.
Okay.
You guide the child towards the religion that the child should practice. But what we have, the opposing thing we have here is imposition. So you find out that we beat children for not living up to certain standards, religious, education-wise, or in so many ways. You are raising your child, trying to impose a certain subject area on the child, a certain course on the child, a certain profession on the child. Oh, you will be a doctor, or you will be a lawyer, or you will be an engineer. And then the child comes to say, oh, I want to be a musician. Rather than guide that child, we start beating the child. Thankfully, today music is very lucrative. So when we see a child that says, I want to be a musician, now we are happy. If a child says, I want to be a footballer, now we are happy. Today, if a child says, I want to be a teacher, you say, God forbid. Rather than guide that child, which is what the act says. So that child has a right to be guided, no longer to be imposed upon by the parents. We breach those rights with the way we raise our children. The culture of I own you. You are my child, I own you, and you must do whatever I ask you to do because my parents told me what to do and I did it. Times are changing and we must change with time.
Yes, wouldn't that be because parents feel, okay, because this child is a minor, you probably not have a mind of your own. You might not even know what is right for you. Don't you think that's why they are doing it?
It is neither here nor there. We must also understand that despite their age, children have a mind of their own. There are special children, there are gifted children. While majority of them, we need a lot of guidance. There are children that we just have to watch grow at their own pace and then we come in and help where we can. Besides, who has told us under what kind of experiment says that children, if we let them, they won't turn out well if we are only guiding them and not imposing. We've seen this in other societies. Parents don't really impose on their children, and that's why we have diversity in those societies. We keep imposing on children until there is no other hope. Then we let them. They are now adults. They have to go and start fighting. Then they start resorting to whatever fate has for them, and it's not good. They've lost their productive age. That mind age, the mind development age, the early stages, that's when their mind develops. You have to let them look at their strengths. A child is telling you, I want to be a footballer. Maybe that's where his strength is. But no, you want the child to be a doctor. That's not where his strength is. So the child goes to school, wastes lots of years in medical school. At the end of maybe a 6 to 10 years gap, the child sees he or she can't do it. At that point, you are tired. The child is an adult. And then you start telling the child, oh, you're an adult. This, that. But you are the one who has spoiled the opportunity for the child.
There's this example, I don't know if you heard the story, the girl, I think the father wanted her to be a lawyer. So when she was done, she had the certificate, she came back and said, Daddy, this one is for you, take. Let me find my own field of what I really want to do because I did it because you forced me to do it. So now I'm done. Here's your certificate. Let me find my way.
Sure, and that's not an isolated case. There are so many cases out there. There are people who are in professions, even they can't leave because they feel it's too late, but they're not giving their best. They are not maximizing the opportunities that they have because they feel they're doing it for somebody. So we must learn to listen to children. There are children who will pick courses or professions that are not for them. But we have to learn to communicate with children. We have to learn to start speaking the language of children. We speak to children as though they are adults. And that is not true. That's not correct. That's an incorrect way of raising children. We have to speak to them in the language that they understand. And that's why it pains me that the guidance and counseling subjects in our schools is dying. It's almost as though it doesn't exist. But that is actually the most important of subjects in schools. Children need a listener. Even if they can't find it at home, they should be able to find it at school. Those are the teachers who should discover our children.
The potentials they have.
They are the ones who should show us the potentials and say, oh, this one is good in arts. There's no need pushing him or her towards sciences. Or you are good in this. Have you heard about this? Can you see this? Can you do that? But they're almost there. It's almost like they don't even exist.
Thank you very much. I'll have to cut you here. So you were saying, and you mentioned earlier that in 2003, the Child Rights Act was adopted in Nigeria. Do you think it's effectively implemented?
No. We are not implementing the act as should. And we cannot blame anybody for this, exactly, except maybe the executive in this case, but the legislature has done its own part, and hopefully someday someone who has a flair or a passion for children will show up in government and ensure that we implement fully. But before that happens, we as a people, we should also push for the implementation, full implementation of all aspects of the Child Rights Act. And then we can see an example of the breach of rights of children. Recently, there was a case in Abuja where a child allegedly lit up a supermarket. I would say mistakenly, because this is a child we are talking about. And then we had videos containing the particulars, the face and everything about this child all over the internet. And nobody said anything. Nobody took any measures to take down those videos. We also later on, which is the most painful part of the whole scenario, the police interrogated this child, and the video recording of that interrogation was all over the place. And then more troubling are the things that were being said to this child during the interrogation. You could hear the police frightening the child, threatening the child, and putting words into this child and saying, "Oh, it's your mother that sent you. If you look at this video again, you will see, okay, if it's not your mother, why did your mother leave you to go there? Why did you go out and you were looking at the building?" You know, you look at that and then you wonder, is it that the police are unaware of the Child Rights Act? What happened to the Specialized Children Police Unit that is established under the Act? The so-called unit. What happened to it? Why did nobody take cognizance of the fact that this person is below the age of 18? Therefore,
sorry for cutting you short now. Talking about the Specialized Children's Unit provided for in the Act.
Yes.
Are they there? Are they in existence now? Are they already established, or it's just there in the Act?
I doubt. There is, what I know of is that there is a young person's unit in the police.
Okay.
There is this unit but most of them think that what they are there for is for defilement of child.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, defilement of children. Once you come to report, they direct you to that unit.
Okay.
They don't have the children's protection, that umbrella body. And because we have so much campaigned against the defilement of children, that is the only area that the police thinks that children have, that they have that interface between children and adults. They need to be sensitized to have that umbrella body as provided for under the Act, where when children come in, first and foremost, you don't look at what the child is alleged to have done. You look at the interest of the child. Because as long as that child is under the age of 18, whatever they do, you consider it first as a mistake.
Okay.
So you look at the interest of the child. Oh, this has happened. This was what happened. Even when you're looking at a child that is seemingly too stubborn, that you start looking at the child as, oh, this is an evil child. There is no such thing as an evil child. A child is a child. And the child is allowed to make mistakes. That is why the law is there to protect the child. So first of all, how do we protect this child to ensure that this mistake of today does not affect the future of tomorrow? I'll give you an instance. This little girl whose face is all over the place now, people know who she is. She has classmates. They know who she is. They've registered what has happened in their heads. Tomorrow, what happens to the interest of this child when the child is an adult and she goes to look for a job? And someone comes to remind her, oh, at age 9, you set a supermarket on fire. We all have children. Those of us who don't have, we have nieces, we have nephews, we have children of relatives. What will we do if the child involved is someone related to us? Won't we consider it a mistake? Children do things. Children have put phones in water. Children destroy things. They destroy our properties. Do we put them on the internet and show everybody, the whole world, and say, oh, this evil child, look at what they've done? Yes, you're looking at the magnitude of what God burnt. But that could have also been a child putting fire on a pillow and then only the pillow gets caught up. Are we trying to say that this child would have known that the whole supermarket would have caught fire? And even if she knew that the whole supermarket would have caught fire, would she have appreciated the level of damage she was doing at that time? Of course, no. So you have to understand that even a stubborn child does not understand the full extent of the damage she is doing, both to the property of the other person and to herself as an individual. Because if we start to judge children, that means every adult will have a baggage that will stop them from achieving their goals in the future.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'll have to. So from your response, it shows that we are not effectively implementing the Child Rights Act, using the supermarket that God wants as an example, and the things that happened around it that shouldn't have happened. So the first I'm going to ask you now is, what are the challenges that are affecting the implementation of this Child Rights Act? What are the things that are making us not to effectively implement this Child Rights Act?
Orientation.
Okay.
Sensitization. There is a lack of public orientation, lack of sensitization. We have enacted this law, yes. But how do we ensure that the letters and the spirits live in us, in our different homes, in our schools, religious gatherings, religious settings? How are we going to get people to understand that there is a cultural shift in how we raise and address the issues of children? So we have to look at that challenge of the cultural imbalance. You have to bring in our people to understand and accept the provisions of the law. Of course, you have no choice. The law is the law. You cannot go against the law. But you have to sensitize, educate people on why they need to accept and practice. I think that is the word. Practice what we are preaching in that act. If we cross that bridge, and that's where the civil society comes in, we have a challenge of sensitization. People don't even know. A lot of people don't even know that.
Yeah, I'm sure even these police that were interrogating that girl doesn't even know about it.
I'm sure. And if the police does not know, then imagine the ordinary man out there. Even well-educated Nigerians, most of us don't know that we shouldn't even watch that video. Our duty should be, there's a video of a girl doing this, that on the internet. You go to the page, the internet page, wherever, and say, please take this down.
Yes.
We should look at it as though the child was our own biological child. Please take this down. You're destroying this child. This is not supposed to be here. But all of us, we went, we watched, we were discussing it, we shared it, we gave everybody said, no, you can't, this is not a mistake, this, that, blah, blah, blah. So if we take that step, the first step of everybody getting involved, because we all have to get involved. Without even looking at the punishment section of the act that punishes anybody that releases information, what have you, against a child, we have to work as a team, all of us, to ensure that if we see somebody doing something that is wrong, remind the person, say, no, stop it. This is a child. Okay,
so in using that one as that scenario of the supermarket and a child and the video is everywhere, we also want you to educate us what would have been a better approach to that situation or to that scenario.
Thank you very much. The first approach would have been the moment that CCTV camera was captured. Because at first when we heard this so supermarket was on fire, nobody knew what happened. Soon as they got hold of the CCTV footage that captured it, that footage should have been transferred straight to the police.
Okay.
The information that should be there will be sketchy. Oh, it was a shopper. The shopper was a minor. No further information. And the police is investigating. No further information. So the question is, who released that CCTV footage on social media? Why did that person feel a need to do that? And how do we ensure that in the future, when such things happen, the CCTV does not leak to anybody, or the video recording, whatever you call it, a better approach would have been take the CCTV, hand it over to the police, then the police will bring in their specially trained officers to handle the case. Even if we are suspecting that an adult may have put this child to this act so that all of them will avoid criminal responsibility, there are provisions under the act for anyone who uses a child to commit an offense. From section 26 down, you will find it under the Child Rights Act. If you use a child to commit an offense, thinking that you're going to escape punishment, at least for using that child to commit that offense, you get 14 years punishment. Therefore, there are ways we can do that. Get the CCTV, hand it over to the police. The police bring specially trained agents. They communicate with the child in the language of children, not in the language of adults. In the language of children, the child gives you information. From the information that the child gives you, you then you have to sieve and understand, okay, did this child do this as a mistake, or someone really put the child up to you? And if someone put the child up to you, you go and then you arrest the adult, and then the child becomes a witness.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ms. Chinelo Obuzo, and thank you, our viewers, for joining us on this wonderful discussion on protecting the rights of minors. We'll be going on a short break now, and then come back to continue this conversation. Please stay tuned.
Welcome back to the show. I hope you enjoyed this conversation the way we are here, where you've explained to us the Child Rights Act, how it's not been effectively implemented, and some of the challenges that have been affecting the implementation of this right. But we want to find out from you, do you think there's institutional mechanisms or authorities available for monitoring and protecting the rights of children? And do you think they're effective, maybe better than the implementation of the Child Rights Act?
The Act establishes so many. There are registered homes, there are care homes, there are community homes, voluntary homes, implementation committees. But like I said before, we are not implementing the Act. Therefore, some of these things are not being properly put in place or implemented by the authorities. And therefore, if we are to start, we should say that those who are responsible, the governors, and then in the FCT, of course, the minister, they should put in place those authorities and put in people who have worked in that area, because that's where we have a problem as a society. When you push and push and push for some of these things to be established, the politicians will establish it and then use it as job for the boys. So they will put people who have no passion for it because there is a job opportunity and someone wants to benefit. These institutions established by the Act, we should also ensure that the people who are put in there are people who have passion for things that concern children, and they are also qualified for things that concern children. And we all of us have to supervise them closely to ensure that the spirit of the Act is applied to its letters. That's the step I think we should take.
Thank you.
So the last clarification I'll have to get from you, maybe because of the special bond between mothers and their children, I'll be asking, do you think there are roles women should play to ensure the rights of minors are properly being protected?
I mean, women have been playing these roles for forever, I would say. But what they should do more is to communicate. Mothers have to communicate more they have to be more present where these conversations about children are being had. For instance, you have the National Assembly. Most of them there are men. In the executive, most people there are men. I mean, I have doubts that if most of the governors were women, we will have these institutions in place. I doubt it very much. But that is not to say that the men do not care. It's just about you have to work with as many of information as you have. That is where the communication part of it comes into play. Women have to talk more. They have to tell the men what the children need. We have to sing it into their ears at home, in the office, our colleagues, Anywhere you find a man that needs to hear, we have to channel it. A lot of women whose husbands are in office, they come home and you tell them. So we look for the women. The women will look for the women in higher places, and the women close to the men in higher places. We keep drumming this information, and we know the powers that we have as women at home. Of course, if you can get it across to the first ladies, I am sure that if they push as they ought to, some of these things will fall in line. So communication, we understand children better because we spend more time with our children. Let's not keep things to ourselves. You say, okay, it's our role. We should be the ones to take care of it. You feel like if you tell your husband or you tell the other men around, it's showing that you don't have the capacity to handle your child. No. Communicate this child's needs to the father, and the father understands that this is a special child with special needs. Therefore, if the father is thinking about schools, that all the children should not go to this particular school. Okay, this one has a special need. This child should be in the other school. You don't wait until it's time for the child to go to the university and then you start telling the father, no, maybe this one should go to a vocational school. He will not understand. You should start drumming it into his ears from day one. This one is not in the same category as this other child. Therefore, at that time when you say, oh, the child should go to a vocational school, he remembers everything that you've been saying to him in the past. So communication is a very great strategy, and I think women should apply it.
Thank you very much. Ijoma, do you have other things to add?
No, just takeaways from her. She has said a lot of things. I like the sensitization part, and I also want to mention maybe we can use the Ministry of Women Affairs as a middleman here between the people and the governor's wife, the first ladies, like you mentioned. So there should be something like a mouthpiece, because I think they have a department there where they are also entitled to help children. So they probably be like a middleman between us and maybe the politicians, I'll put it like that. And desensitization, she also mentioned CSOs having to come in, help sensitization, maybe not just in written form, jingles, radio, TV, adverts, so that people will be aware. I'm sure most people don't even know about the Child Rights Act, like you mentioned earlier.
And finally, now that you've said it, something has just occurred to me. We also need to teach children that they have rights.
Yes, that can even come in schools.
Teach children that they have rights, and find a way to balance it so that it does not look like the child is being rude. The child, let us teach children that they have rights, and teach them how to communicate their rights to adults who do not know that they have rights.
I think that's another, like the way you mentioned the counseling, guidance and counseling in school. This should be something that should be part of our schools, so that children actually know. I'm sure most teachers don't even know about this child rights.
Yes, but funny enough, while growing up, we had this guidance and counseling. They didn't let us know that we had rights. So they cancelled us. Yes, they cancelled us out of the fact that they're not supposed to have rights until they are old enough.
Yeah, because some of the teachers see it as me versus the student. I am in power.
Yes,
the authority. It goes back to the cultural issue I was talking about, where the more powerful people think that the less powerful people must do as they say. And that's not the situation. If your child is left on your care, you are to guide the child and not to impose on the child.
Yeah, so that being said, I'll have to say thank you very much, Ms. Chinelo Obozo, for taking our time to give us this lecture on the rights of minors and to also let us understand that there are specific rights for minors in the country. Thank you so much, our viewers, for taking our time to listen to this and to watch protection of the rights of minors and the roles women play in making sure that rights of minors are being protected. Remember to always put in the comment section topics you would want us to discuss still on women empowerment. So thank you very much once again. Join us next week Friday at 11 a.m. for another interesting episode. For now, I will say bye.